What's up, y'all? I'm back with another video, and this one is a bit different from what we're used to putting out because there's quite a lot to cover in this video, and by the end of this I would have barely gotten started. But anyway, this past weekend I got the chance to test out the Apple Vision Pro, and I'm left with quite a lot of mixed emotions about it. On one end, I think it's an amazing headset, or spatial computer as they like to call it. And on the other end, I know that it's just not meant for everyone. This might be for a very specific niche market, but to be fair, this is called the Apple Vision Pro. So if this is anything like the other product lines that come out from Apple, whereas, for example, they released the iPhone 15 and then the upgraded iPhone 15 Pro, the door is wide open for Apple to release a base version of the Vision Pro, which may be more geared towards the general consumer. Before we get into all of this, don't forget that you can check out 180by2.co.za to get your hands on all your VR and 360 camera gear. So the first thing is visuals. The moment I turned on the Vision Pro, I could see how clear the details are, especially when messing around with mixed reality elements. So there's this app called Encounter Dinosaurs, where there's this butterfly that landed on my finger and then it flew away into a screen. Then there's these dinosaurs that show up and they start fighting each other to claim me as their prey. But also, it's just very easy to differentiate between objects that are at different distances. Like, depth perception is so good that my brain or my eyes don't have to try and make sense of how far different elements are, because when one object is further away than another, it actually looks like it. Kind of like an IMAX movie with those glasses that they give you to it. It's hard to see on a YouTube video, but on the Vision Pro, it's clear as day. The same goes for icons in the app menu. When you look at them, they expand into the subtle 3D look. It doesn't really make them stick out when you select them, but I guess that is more of a design preference. Okay, so let's just bring it back a little bit because the Vision Pro doesn't come with any hand controllers. Instead, it uses a combination of eye tracking and hand tracking features. So looking directly at something is like having your mouse on it, and then pinching with your thumb and index fingers like selecting it. As an idea, it really is as cool as it sounds. In practice on the Vision Pro, it's very annoying. It seems to be slightly offset most of the time. So instead of me looking directly at something, I tend to have to look to the lower left of it. It's not so bad when it's a big button, but when I'm trying to close an app with the little circle at the bottom of the window, I find myself always having to pinch randomly, just hoping to hit it by chance. The other thing is you kind of have to figure out how to control apps and games almost the whole time, because you don't really get that many tutorials and guides when opening apps. So the Vision Pro has the best pass-through that I've seen, hands down. Speaking of hands, it's impressive how they can just mask my hands into pretty much everything I do. It feels like a more realistic experience visually, especially when working with augmented reality elements. It's also easy to read through these headsets, and if there is any warping that happened, I barely noticed it. Objects that pop up in AR look incredibly realistic, and they're brought into the room with lighting and shadows that are relative to my current surroundings, which is insane. But another feature is that if I open a window while I'm in this room and then go to another room, that window stays where it is unless I move it. So if you're watching a movie in the living room and then go to the kitchen, when you come back and sit down, that screen will be exactly where you left it. Another feature is that if I'm fully immersed in VR and then start talking to someone who's standing in front of me in the real world, the headsets will automatically pick that up and then sort of like blur them into my view so I can see them. Then once I'm done talking to them, it'll go back to full immersion. In my opinion, the Vision Pro is not comfortable to wear or use. The eye tracking feels like an unnatural exercise, especially when it isn't accurately pointing where you're looking. My eyes can feel like they're exhausted, literally, after about 30 minutes of having this thing on. If I'm just sitting and watching something, it's really not bad. But once I start operating controls and selecting things, it starts to get very hard to carry on. Then there's the standard hip strap, which puts a lot of weight on your forehead, and it makes it very hard to use for long sessions because all the weight of the Vision Pro is pretty much on the front side of the unit. Now, in the box, you get a dual loop band, which is like an alternative to the single head strap. And that is definitely a lot more comfortable than the normal strap, since it pretty much takes all the weight off from your forehead and places it on top of your head. It would have been nice if this adjustment in placement also helped with the accuracy of the eye tracking, but it didn't. In any case, it's still a very good thing to have the dual loop band in the box because it does make it a lot easier to wear the headset over longer play sessions. So I did try a few apps, but there isn't really a huge selection currently available. There are some entertainment apps like Amaze VR, which offers an immersive view of an artist's performance. Then there's Encounter Dinosaurs that I spoke about earlier. There's Jigspace, where you can learn to assemble a table or disassemble a spacecraft or a Formula One car, stuff like that. You can only really see the shell of those objects because the inner sides are just flat, but it still is really cool to be able to sit in an F1 car and then just kind of do this and have it move around. There's a DJ app which won't really teach you how to move, sync, or like match songs properly, but it is really fun to mix in different environments. Apps like Space Vision, those immerse you in a view of the solar system so you can learn about different planets. And there are some puzzle and board games as well that I've tried out. So far, there are about 600 apps available for the Vision Pro, with other iPhone or iPad apps available too. They just allow you to control your regular app by using a screen mirror. There are a couple of apps missing, like generally Netflix and YouTube. Speaking of which, I was able to actually watch a YouTube video on the Vision Pro, but I couldn't actually watch it in 360 without a native YouTube app. So to me, the apps are cool when you first try them out, but I get bored of them fairly quickly, and I question how much time the average person would spend on any particular app. They all feel like demo or trial versions, but generally I don't think we can expect much from the Apple Vision Pro from a gaming perspective, but more so from productivity apps or having a virtual screen for your MacBook on an airplane or something like that. With performance, all I can say is there's no lag whatsoever. It's almost too fast. Like in the car, all the bumps from the road made it even harder for me to use the eye tracking, and honestly, it felt way too unnatural. I really want to test how this looks going through the menus with the Quest 3, but so far, I can say that visual latency when doing actions is super minimal on the Vision Pro. Like I said earlier, everything does feel like a demo version, so I didn't really find any apps that seemed to require a lot of processing power. And I don't think I can give a fair opinion about the performance without at least trying to push the Vision Pro to its limits. Again, this may be hard to see through a YouTube video, but imagine you take a picture and then the objects in the picture get placed at different depths and distances. So it's not like a flat 2D image, but rather everything is kind of placed on different layers, which makes it look more 3D. Again, sort of like an IMAX movie. I wouldn't call this feature a game changer because it doesn't communicate that well on a flat screen like your TV or your phone, but it is very different and pretty cool in its own way. Connectivity, well, there actually is no wired connectivity for the Vision Pro as it comes out the box, except for the cables that comes connected to the battery, which in itself is quite weird. But other than that, there's no headphone jack, so you'll need to use AirPods for a more private listening experience. And you'd also need to get a separate accessory if you would like to plug in your USB-C cable. For instance, I had to airdrop all of my screen recordings onto my phone, which fortunately is an iPhone, and then transfer them to a USB to get them onto my Windows computer. It's an irritating process, especially when you have to do it over and over again. So unless you already have the Apple ecosystem already in play, be patient when transferring files to and from this device. Now to talk about all the lies that I've seen on social media, because there's a lot, guys. First, I'll start off with this video with this guy that I saw driving with the Vision Pro. And if you think something was actually happening in the headset, you'd be wrong. I think the headset tracks your surroundings constantly. So when you're driving past everything, it struggles to track properly and there's basically nothing you can do with it. It cuts the GPS, all the windows disappear, it's just passed through. So it's like wearing glasses, except this makes it harder for you to even see while on the road. With the narrow field of view, you'd have to turn your head fully to see cars coming from the side. So driving with the Vision Pro, he lied, guys. He lied to us. The next thing would be the eyes on the front of the headset. So this one is tricky to comment on because I'm not too sure exactly how the eyes on the front were meant to show, but as it is now, it's kind of weird to see. The display isn't as clear as it looks on the promo videos, and the glass on the front of the headset kind of reflects light most of the time. Remember, you wouldn't actually be looking at my eyes through the headset, but actually a visual representation of them. So turning my head up, down, or to the sides makes it look awkward based on their position. Thus far, I haven't tried and tested everything that I would like to have tried and tested, such as seeing how well the Vision Pro syncs up with other products on the Apple ecosystem, apart from the iPhone, of course, like a MacBook. I would also like to try out a FaceTime call with someone who has a Vision Pro, and then also see how much there is to experience on the app side of things. I will put all of those insights out on the actual Vision Pro review video, and then hopefully I'll be able to do a comparison video between the Apple Vision Pro and the Meta Quest 3 to see if that price difference is really justifiable, because at this point, my opinion is that the Vision Pro was made to sort of usher in the VR ideas of the future. But it just wouldn't work for the general consumer who just didn't have a specific need to get it. There are a lot of incredible possibilities that this opens the door to, but the technology just isn't there yet. And I'm under the impression that developers might use this as more of a benchmark for future VR experiences. With all that being said, that brings us to the end of this first impressions video on the Apple Vision Pro. Don't forget to check out 180by2.co.za if you're interested in getting any VR or 360 camera gear. So until next time, keep it real.